Okay, so I'm starting. That's it? We're beginning. Okay. So this evening I wanted to focus on some of my art pieces that I've done that have culminated in this piece, which I call Conservation of Intimacy. And my installations really are about how we understand our world and how we, and I think we do this by making models and analogs, analogies of things. And I try to understand how we do this understanding by making models of the models, if you will. So, and in this endeavor, I owe a huge debt to Etienne Jules Marey, father of motion pictures and 19th century physiologist. If you know Marey's work at all, you probably know these images, which he called chronophotography. He was obsessed with trying to understand motion because for him, motion was the language of life. And really, he was an engineer of life. He was always inventing machines and mechanisms, cameras, and various other stuff. I'll show you just a sampling of some of his work. Various ways to record movement. Marey's work came in the midst of the incredible success of 19th century industrialism. And in many ways, his work really is central to modernity, to the dawn of the modern age. And these photos were, one example is that these photos are kind of indicative of a change in the idea of time. So that, if you look at this image, you no longer have a past and a present and a future. You really only have a now. You have a now and a now that you can't hold on to, which is kind of the modern sense of time. And Duchamp did his nude descending a staircase as a direct reference to one of Marey's set of images. We don't have time for me to show you how Marey generated those images, but Duchamp was both reverent and critical of this kind of new sense of the body and time. And interestingly, Marey had thought that his work was going to help artists to do more realistic renderings in classic kind of paintings, and that they were going to now see really how the horse moved, how the person moved, and that they would be able to understand it. But instead, we got Marey leading to Duchamp rather than improvements in classic kind of painting. So I first came across Marey's work at the Bakken Museum in Minneapolis. I saw this instrument that he had made to analyze how the lips move during speech. And you put your lips on this thing, and you've also got the blowing there. And I was so excited by this absurd little thing that was sitting in a display case that I ran to the office and said, "I got to meet the curator here." And they sent me down to this cave where the curator lived. Actually, he lived in the vault where they had all these fabulous artifacts. And he, after much persuasion, he gave me a book about Marey, a pamphlet about Marey and cardiology, because Marey was a pioneer of modern cardiology. But before chronophotography, I will show you some of my work too. I know I'm going on about Marey, but I think it's so fabulous. Anyway, before he was doing the photography, the chronophotography, he used a system of tambours, as he called them, little drums with a rubber sheet covering them, so that the slightest disturbance on the surface of one drum would send a signal to the other drum. And so he would hook up a sensor to some part of the body, and then he would have another pneumatic writing system, so that he would then write the movement as it was being transmitted. So Marey began his career studying the circulatory system, and you can see on the left we have Carl Ludwig's pulse meter, where you would take a live dog, cut open his carotid artery, and insert this tube that was connected to a column of mercury. Not a very good diagnostic tool. It was more a demonstration of feasibility. Marey, in 1860, not that many years later, invented this fabulous little sphygmograph, this pulse meter, that read the pulse directly. And Marey in doing this and several other experiments that he did with cardiac catheterization, he invented medical imaging, really. And as luck would have it, the next year, my doctor discovered that I had an aortic aneurysm and I needed to have heart surgery. And this, of course, was discovered with really this is an echocardiogram is really just the legacy of Marey's apparatus. So I kind of think I owe my life to Marey. But anyway, so I had to do something, some piece a la Marey. One of the other things Marey would do is these simulations. He would, just sort of test his mechanical understanding of how the heart functioned. And my simulation, which I called the etiology of innocence, because for me, the thing about Marey is this fabulous mixture of wonder and sophistication that he managed to be holding at the same time. So etiology is the study of causes, and mostly used by the medical profession as in the origins of a disease. And in this age of anxiety, I think that we often treat innocence as a disease. Anyway, here's this piece in operation here. We might have to suddenly hit the... Okay, that's some volume. So I'm kind of squeezing and garroting these organs here, a la Marey, and I've got this canvas belt that I'm running into the next room with this big loose end on it. I like the loose end because it threatens to get caught in the mechanisms all the time. But this is just the right length. Any longer than this and it did get caught, and any shorter than this and you wouldn't have any tension. So this is this heartbeat mechanism that I added. This is kind of that privileged position, you lay your head on someone's chest, you would hear their heart beating. You might also hear their stomach gurgling. But the gurgler, as I call it, is really there for another purpose. It's providing the level of the liquid provides variable back pressure so that I can get the organ in this jar to be throbbing. Now all of this is happening by the person outside cranking this, and they can't see what they're doing. They're outside this entire system cranking it, so they have to team up with somebody. I'll crank it for you if you crank it for me, and I think that meeting two people like that is kind of good for a heart piece. So all of my components are really quite fragile, and this fragility really is part of my mechanical model of being human. I see us as machines, as Marey did, but not as ideal machines. My understanding is that we are flawed and fragile, and much like the real machines, like my car, that needs to always be fixed. And so our bodies break, our ideas aren't quite right, our relationships don't really work. So the way machines fail is kind of like a metaphor for the way we fail. And so my artworks are a lot about working this sort of metaphorical territory. Anyway, this was how I began my Marey-inspired experience, and then leading to the conservation of intimacy here. So to fully appreciate this piece, that is another view of the one I started the show with. You need to be physically involved in my work. It's a question of participation. You're not outside looking in. You're a part of it. You understand things from the inside. And one person can, on the bench here, moving around, can get things to work, but it works much better with two people. And of course, that's one of the points of the piece, that with two people, things are better. I think I'm not moving as fast as I want to, so I'm actually going to skip this section where I'm comparing my way of analyzing data with Marey's way of analyzing data. But to say that Marey had extended the principle of conservation of intimacy to understand human movement. Conservation of energy to understand human movement. And my piece I'm trying to extend Marey's endeavor to understand intimacy. And my title suggests that if there are laws for the human universe, that intimacy may be fundamental to that. That, you like energy in the physical universe, it can be reconfigured, but you can never create or destroy it. Intimacy must be conserved. Anyway, here's this piece in operation here. So you've got the couple on the bench, and as they move around, they're working these Marey-style tambours. And one of the things that they're doing with the tambours is they're moving this tray in another room, which is making these balls roll around. And they're watching that on the video monitors. And if they move right with each other, they can get the balls to kind of float nicely in the air as they dance around on the bench. And now there's a third person on a bike that's making the paper come down. And if the couple on the bench moves from side to side, they blow in the ear of the third person. So you get a little menage a trois. And then there are more tambours above, and those are operating the pen system that are writing the up, down, left, right, front, back. And there's a third dimension, right? Front, back, up, down, left, right, front, back, okay. So I originally added the writing system. I added the writing system as a kind of a joke about how science will analyze everything, even intimacy. But I actually discovered that you can tell how the couple is getting along on the bench. Not totally, but you can tell quite a bit. So I've got an arrow here indicating this spot where, where if all three of those pens are working at the same time, the couple are kind of dancing with each other on the bench, because they're moving around like that. And if only one, and then the other, and then the other, somebody's in charge. And it's a very different kind of relationship that we're talking about there. So this whole discovery of the improbable. This is a cartoon that I think sums this up. Yeah, yes, I know that, Sydney. Everybody knows that. But look, 4 wrongs squared minus 2 wrongs to the 4th power divided by this formula do make a right. So I'm always looking for that kind of thing, where, yes, if I have enough wrongs together, and a lot of my looking is almost a physical kind of groping, like it involves touching and making things like, kind of like the Doubting Thomas here. Or the touchstone, which was used to determine the quality of the gold. This is a different kind of touch. This is a more possessive sort of touch here that the middle-aged baby Jesus has. And the middle-aged baby Jesus here made me think of Jean Piaget, which was a child psychologist. He preferred genetic epistemologist, but he saw the child as a little scientist discovering the world, and part of his theory of intelligence was that our early understandings are based on touch. So the child develops schemas, as Piaget called them, that he called concrete operations. So we really start with an embodied cognition. And you can see these concrete operational patterns as this 14-week-old child is exploring, this thing in front of her, I think it is. As we age, these concrete operations get replaced with what Piaget called formal operations. But I think that inside of our bodies is this reservoir of knowledge that was there about touch, and so I like to tap into that. And this is a piece about touch and about I don't know. I think all right, I got the time here. 14 minutes. I don't know. Maybe we're okay. When you touch something, and you also are touched by it, it kind of connects you to the world in an interesting way. It's both empathic and makes you self-aware all at the same time. It's kind of an interesting thing. And there's a song about this from my youth that goes something like, does he love me? I want to know. How can I tell if he loves me so? Is it the way he acts? Oh no, it's not the way. And you're not listening to all I say. If you want to know if he loves you so, it's in his kiss. That's where it is. So, anyway, with that in mind, here's this piece, making a point of inflection. So, this piece is about relationships, really. And any relationship that's pumped up, I'm pumping air into the space between these two latex sheets that I have. Any relationship that's pumped up like that, there's always going to be something that gets in the way. Ooh, bubble of air. You can see I'm having like way too much fun with this at the moment. Latex is very sexy, and with a double layer of latex, this is very safe sex. So this is the all-male, more competitive version of the piece. And then the patty cake game people wind up playing with. So another of Marey's great contributions to modernity was to really explore the metaphor of the human motor, applying thermodynamics, if you will, to human activity in the workplace. And I have a piece here called A Theory of Entanglement, which kind of metaphorically converts quantum entanglement into a mechanical analog for social psychology. It's also a literal entanglement because this is a knitting machine. And knitting is, making some reference to this industrialized body. This is in my living room. And this is the piece as it was installed in the atrium in Liverpool. So, if you probably know quantum entanglement is a property of particles such as electrons where their common history will cause them to always act in synchrony even if they are later separated and have no means to communicate. So I'm kind of suggesting that maybe people working my piece are going to have a relationship that will force them, even if they never see each other again, they will always be connected somehow, Anyway, the bike's on the floor, power the knitter, and you can see the knitting just starting to poke out of the bottom of the arrangement here. So these two bikes are geared differently, actually, so that the two people, one of them has to go faster than they want, the other slower than they want. And so they have to accommodate to each other.
Where's the sofa then?
So this question about the sofa.
Yes, going down to them.
It's interesting because all of their bike riding will amount to nothing if there's nobody sitting on the sofa they don't have to be doing anything, but someone has to be sitting on the sofa because they activate the clutch and cause the power from the bikes to get into the knitting machine. And, so if they, and this friend of mine pointed out that this is a metaphor for capitalism. There has to be someone doing nothing for the system to work. So here the knitting this is in my living room. I've got the knitting going here. This was about 20 times as fast as it was in my in the installation. It would knit one row every 20 minutes. So it would take many, many groups of people to get the full knitting done. Anyway, so I added some labels, and this is not the Luddite rebellion was not part of the piece, but it is a connection that I had in mind. Anyway, in the interest of finishing on time, this is a different venue, but the same installation. I want to close with my most perverse use of Marey's technology. So with apologies to Marey and to Irving Berlin and to Fred and Ginger, this is my version of Cheek to Cheek. So as you move your butt around on this stool, you work these tambours at the bottom of the stool, and they push air into this headset. So really what you're doing is your lower cheeks are working your upper cheeks, and you're dancing with yourself cheek to cheek. And this Mona Lisa smile is inevitable. You know, there's something about that, you know, only I know how pleasurable this is. So that's it, 20 minutes and 11 seconds. Is that all right?
Awesome.